What's up, YouTube? This is Too Raw for TV with another one. All right. I want to just say, man, I really appreciate the feedback that you guys give me on these videos, man. A lot of you guys have some really good points, you know what I'm saying? And I also like the fact that, we can agree to disagree on this channel, you know what I'm saying? Like, I don't agree with everything that you guys put out there. Y'all obviously don't agree with everything I say. You know what I'm saying? But you ain't gotta be, disrespectful about it. And that's what's cool. You know what I'm saying? Like, I had to get rid of some of these old jokers on my channel, man, that was disrespecting people in the chat and disrespecting me. And, like, you can agree without calling somebody, this or that or whatever. But I don't really talk about politics no more on this channel, man, because it's not a political channel. But I just want to give my thoughts on something right quick about the election coming up next year. And like I said, it's far off, man. The election is still almost a year away, man. A lot of things can happen, but I'm almost 40 years old now, and I've been sort of following elections since 1988, but really I would say 92 is when I started following them, even when I was in middle school. I think 92 was the first one I really followed. And then, of course, as I got older, I got a little bit more nuanced and knowledgeable about these things. But yeah, since 88, since a little bit, but really 92. So I'd say for the last 26, 27 years, I've been following elections, especially presidential elections. And the thing that I have to say about this one coming up is people should never underestimate this dude in the White House. I'm not a fan of his. I don't like him. If you follow my channel, you know I do not like this dude. But I have to give the devil his due. The dude is a very good campaigner, and he knows what to say to his base to get them out. This impeachment process that the Democrats are going through, right? I have to say that I don't know. Look, there are a lot of people who hate Donald Trump. We look at the polls. Probably 55 to 60% of the country hates him, right? But the only thing about that is not all of that 55 to 60% go to the polls. You know what I'm saying? If everybody went out there and voted, Trump would lose in a landslide. But that's the problem. A lot of the Democratic base don't come out to vote. You know what I'm saying? They really don't come out to vote in the numbers that they should. Meanwhile, the people who vote for Trump, they tend to come out more, especially in the off-year elections. This past year, in 2018, were exceptions because the Democrats did a better job of getting their voters out in the midterm, which usually doesn't happen that often. But going back to this impeachment thing, man, I just get the feeling that people it's not connecting with people like Watergate did. Watergate was a little bit more simplistic. Like, Watergate was easier to follow. And also people, I said this in my Patreon video, people were a lot more knowledgeable back then. Let's just keep it real, man. Like, it was easy to follow. There was a break-in. Okay? Actually, before that, there was a break-in the year prior in the Brookings, I think it was the Brookings Institute, where someone tried to steal some files. All right, from I can't think of his name right now, but the guy who leaked the Pentagon Papers. Can't think of his name right now off the top of my head. But someone tried to break into his files to see what he knew. So when this came out, but nobody could link that to President Nixon at the time. So when this came out that some group of burglars broke into the Democratic National Committee and tried to attempt to steal information, that was something people could follow. And then when it slowly progressed and it went from a minor story to becoming a bigger story, and more evidence came out that higher level officials in the Nixon administration were involved, people got intrigued. But the thing about it, people forget, was no one, for the most part, up until I'd say the Saturday Night Massacre, the majority of Americans still backed Nixon. You know, even though John Dean said that the president knew more than what he was letting on to, and Nixon eventually fired H.R. Haldeman and John Ehrlichman as two top guys in the cabinet, the American people still kind of supported Nixon until the Saturday Night Massacre. And what happened with the Saturday Night Massacre is that the special prosecutor at the time, whose name was Archibald Cox, yeah, that's a funny name, I'll put it like this, make a long story short, he was getting too close. He was getting too close to finding incriminating information, because they had already, by July, I think it had been revealed that the president had tapes, you know what I'm saying, that they recorded conversations. So Archibald Cox was starting to get closer to what Nixon knew was a smoking gun, and he was stalling it off. So Nixon ordered his he ordered his Attorney General, Elliot Richardson, to fire Cox, which Elliot Richardson didn't do, so he resigned. So then his replacement, the deputy, William Ruckelshaus, who actually died the other day, he refused to do it. So then the third in line, Robert Bork, went ahead and did it and fired Archibald Cox, who was the special prosecutor. So to a lot of people, that was like an admission of guilt. Like, why would Nixon fire the guy investigating him unless he has something to prove, something to hide? So it was easier to follow. And then ultimately, it took a long time. It took several months later, the next summer. But then the smoking gun happened, and then, people saw what Nixon said, and they saw the tape that directly led to him saying, yeah, stonewall it, keep the FBI from going further with this. So Nixon had to resign. He was lying. I kind of liken this situation to like the Clinton thing. Like, a lot of people were like, okay, what is this about again? Like, him getting like a blowjob? Well, no, he lied in his deposition. Yeah, but I mean, this is really about a blowjob. And it looked like it was a witch hunt. The Republicans were going at Clinton unfairly. A lot of people could empathize with what Clinton was going through, thinking it was really nobody's business but him and his wife. And that's why Clinton went up in the polls that year. And in the midterms, I think some of the Republicans, if I remember correctly, in the 98 midterms, the Republicans had some losses in the House and Senate. And I'm starting to get the impression that the American people, unless you really, really hate Trump's guts, I think people kind of care, but it's kind of foreign. Ukraine and quid pro quo. 40% of people probably don't know what the fuck quid pro quo means. You know what I'm saying? Like, I don't think a lot of people are following this shit too well. And some polls have Trump ticking up a little bit, which doesn't make any sense, right? But I'm thinking that's partially what it is. And as far as the Democratic candidates are concerned, oh boy, I know a lot of people are not going to agree with this shit, man, but if this was a perfect world, the most progressive candidate would win. All right? But I honestly believe, and I know QuestX doesn't agree with this at all, I think to actually beat Donald Trump, the Democrats' best hope is Joe Biden. And I know he's like the most conservative by comparison of all the Democratic candidates, but I think Joe Biden would do best in the areas that Hillary did worst in, and that's the Rust Belt and the Midwest area. You know what I'm saying? He's from Pennsylvania. He speaks their language. He's older. He's not in his prime anymore. You know what I'm saying? Joe Biden is a gaffe machine. We all know that. But at the end of the day, I think Joe Biden is the best candidate to actually beat Donald Trump and the general election, provided he doesn't put his fucking foot in his mouth several fucking times between now and election day. I just don't think the other candidates can beat him. And I'm looking at like some of these candidates that are like polling really high right now, Buttigieg, and look, the thing that's going to save Joe Biden, I know he's going down the polls a little bit, but I think what's going to save Joe Biden is when we go further into these primaries, more of the southern states are going to pop up. And we all know that the southern states have a very high African American population. And Joe Biden's connection as vice president to Barack Obama, I think is going to save him. And he's going to build momentum. And I think ultimately he's going to have a come from behind victory in the primaries, sort of like how John McCain came back from the dead in 2008 and went on to win the nomination. I think that's what's going to happen. I don't know who he's going to run with, but it's probably going to have to be a progressive and someone younger to counter his age and establishment appearance. I don't know who he would run with, but I would assume it'll probably be somebody like Elizabeth Warren. That's what I would assume. I would assume it would be Elizabeth Warren. She's perceived as a progressive. She's a woman. She's a white woman. I don't know if Bernie, I know people love Bernie and shit, but I just think it's going to be, the establishment hates Bernie. And Elizabeth Warren's cutting into Bernie's vote anyway. So that's what I think is going to happen. I think in the general, if it's Biden and Warren and you got Trump and Pence, it's going to be close, a lot closer than people think it's going to be. You know what I'm saying? I put it like this. If Joe Biden wins the popular vote by 3 to 5 points on election day, if he wins it by 3 or 4 points, 5 maybe, but 3 to 4 points, then I think he wins the electoral college. I think he ekes out electoral college victory because I don't think Trump's going to win the popular vote. The way that these elections are set up now with California and New York with these mass populations, the Democrats starting to cut into the Republicans' big advantage in Texas, it's just not set up for Republicans to win the popular vote, but the Republicans do have an electoral advantage. So if that happens, I think Trump loses. But if Trump can keep the margin in the national popular vote 2 points or closer than that, then he wins. So that's why you can't really go off these national polls next year. You can't really go off of the polls, the national polls. You got to go by state elections. And the most important area to watch, I think, next year is going to be the states that he flipped, which was mostly in the Midwest and the Rust Belt, like Pennsylvania. You got to watch Wisconsin. You got to watch Michigan, Iowa. Minnesota's a state I think he's going after this time because it was really close last time. If Joe Biden is winning and leading in those states, then Trump's going to lose. If Trump is performing well in those states and maybe even picking up some other states, maybe even flipping another state, you know, I don't think he's going to carry Virginia, but we don't know. But it's going to be interesting, man. And that's pretty much what my thoughts are right now. Tell me what you guys think.